So 2.4, long-term adaptations to exercise. So different activities and events have different demands on the body. Long duration events with a lower intensity, such as a marathon, will force the body and its different systems to work aerobically, whereas short duration events with high intensity, such as a 100-meter sprint, will favour the body and its systems to work anaerobically. Then activities in the middle, such as game sports, for example basketball, will require elements from both aerobic and anaerobic. For an athlete to succeed in their chosen activity, they must train using the principle of SOPRA. The S refers to specificity, in that they must specify what they want to improve and base it on this. For example, a sprinter might want to work on their start out of the blocks. So this is specific to what they will do their training program specific to this. The O refers to overload. A performer must overload on what they are normally used to in order for their body to feel uncomfortable. P stands for progression, which ties in with overload. Once the body has been subjected to the uncomfortable conditions, it will make adaptations to feel comfortable in that intensity. Therefore, once the body is comfortable, the overload must be progressed in order to keep the body uncomfortable for further adaptations. So for example, a weightlifter will increase the weight they are lifting once the previous weight becomes too easy for them. Lastly, there is R, which stands for reversibility. This states that if training is stopped, then the adaptations of the body can be reversed. These training programs can be adapted in different ways to suit the type of event an athlete is training for, in order to promote the right adaptations for their body in that type of exercise. So here we can see that the bodies of these two marathon runners and sprinters actually have different shapes due to their adaptations being different, and that's what we'll get into. So for aerobic training, an athlete will want to train at a low intensity and a long duration to promote aerobic adaptations. Ways they can do this is continuous training, using typically 60 to 70% of their VO2 max for long durations, from 30 minutes to 2 hours per training session. Another way is resistance. They'll want to use 70% of their 1 rep max with a high amount of reps. This is normally about 12 to 15. Both these types of trainings promote the use of aerobic systems, and therefore will show adaptation to the aerobic systems of the body and at the end of the training program. Over a long-term training program from 6 to 8 weeks, an athlete will want to train aerobically about 3 to 4 times a week, giving days to rest and recover their body, because their training sessions, as we see, are 30 minutes to 2 hours, which are quite long and will put quite a big strain on the body. So in order to prevent injury, they'll want longer rest periods. So anaerobic training will see an athlete working at high intensities for short duration periods to promote anaerobic adaptations to the body. Interval training is the most common form of training that is used for anaerobic adaptations. More specifically, high intensity interval training, known as HIIT, is used. This contains high intensity work periods combined with moderate intensity rest periods. Therefore, the body is constantly working anaerobically at or above their VO2 max. Resistance training, the athlete will want to work using 90% upwards of their 1 rep max with a low amount of reps, normally 6, around 6. Both of these training methods will promote the body working anaerobically, and therefore cause anaerobic adaptations after a long-term training program. During the 6 to 8 weeks, the athlete will want to train 4 to 6 times a week. This is more than aerobic, as they are normally shorter duration sessions, not lasting longer than 40 minutes. So the body has more time to recover because the sessions are shorter. So they need less time to rest so they can train more. So getting into the adaptations of the anaerobic system. Anaerobic exercise are activities that do not use oxygen and therefore are often maximal intensity exercises with a high intensity and short duration. The body requires specific adaptions for this type of exercise. These adaptions can be acquired through training methods that exposes the body to anaerobic conditions, as we just mentioned. These adaptions will increase the performer's anaerobic ability and help them to perform at a higher level. For example, a sprinter who has been training on anaerobic explosiveness will be more suited to run the 100-meter sprint than a marathon, and therefore will be better in a sprint. An athlete who is training anaerobically will decrease their risk of suffering from diseases or conditions relating to their health, such as diabetes and coronary heart disease, mainly because they are keeping their body in good shape, and preventing these diseases from happening to their body. So getting into the first section of adaptions, the cardiovascular system. During a 6 to 8 week anaerobic training program, the cardiovascular system will make adaptions to help with the new pressure it's under during the training. The main function of the cardiovascular system is to supply oxygen to the muscles. However, in aerobic exercise, we are working without oxygen. Therefore, these adaptions are prevalent in the recovery stage post-exercise, as the body attempts to begin working aerobically again with oxygen. So firstly, the myocardium walls of the heart will increase in size and strength. This is also known as hypertrophy. This allows the heart to pump more blood out of the heart per beat to the muscles. Therefore, the stroke volume increases as an adaptation. So these two adaptions help bring more oxygen to the working muscles to increase recovery time after this type of exercise. As the heart is able to pump more blood out per beat, the heart rate decreases as less beats are needed to pump out the same amount of blood. So therefore, resting heart rate values would decrease, as well as heart rate values during exercise. So for example, here we have some results for an untrained individual during an anaerobic Wingate test. Their resting heart value was 79 beats per minute. After an 8-week training program, this value we would estimate to decrease to around 60 to 65 beats per minute. After the exercise, their heart rate was 152 beats per minute in the test. But after the training program, if they did the same test again, their heart rate would be more around 130 beats per minute for the same exercise. This is because their body has adapted to the strain of the exercise after the training program and has become more comfortable in these conditions. So in terms of a 100-meter sprinter, they would feel less fatigue after the race, after they've done the training program, as the adaptions have made their body more efficient at circulating oxygen throughout the cardiovascular system to replenish the muscles that have been working and flush out any waste products formed through anaerobic respiration, like carbon dioxide and lactic acid. So going on to blood pressure, the smooth muscles in the walls of the artery vessels become more efficient at stretching when under pressure, as they have been used to this constantly during the 8-week training program. This adaptation will decrease the overall blood pressure values at rest and during exercise because they're stretching more and able to deal with the pressure. So during the Wingate test taken, the untrained individual's blood pressure was at rest 129 over 60 millimeters of mercury. After the training program with these adaptations, we would see a decrease to make the result about 120 to 58 millimeters of mercury. After the test, their blood pressure was 144 over 66 millimeters of mercury. Again, after these adaptations have taken place, we would see this likely to decrease to 135 to over 63 millimeters of mercury. So moving on to the respiratory system. After an 8-week anaerobic training program, the respiratory system will also make adaptations. One of its main functions is to take in oxygen from the external environment and get it to the bloodstream. So similarly to the CV system, its main adaptations will benefit the recovery period for the athlete after the anaerobic exercise to help them get more oxygen back into the body in order to flush out waste products and to start working aerobically again. Firstly, the respiratory muscles will go through hypertrophy. These muscles here will grow and become a lot stronger. after dealing with stress through the training program to get more oxygen into the body after each session. This allows the muscles to contract deeper because they're stronger, which therefore increases the amount of oxygen that is breathed in per breath. So the tidal volume will increase over the long-term training program. The increase in tidal volume will therefore increase the minute ventilation value of the performer as another adaptation. Because the tidal volume is increased, the body is able to take in larger amounts of oxygen per breath. Therefore, the breathing rate decreases as less breaths are needed for the same amount of oxygen. So here is an example. During the Wingate test, this is the breathing rate values taken for an untrained individual. At rest, their breathing rate was 14 per minute. After the long-term training program, adaptions would have taken place, and we see a decrease in about down to about maybe 10 breaths per minute. Similarly, at the end of the test, they were measured at 28 breaths per minute. After training, we would estimate a decrease to about 21 breaths per minute, as they don't need to breathe as much to take in the same amount of oxygen. An anaerobic athlete, such as an 100-meter sprinter, will see a decrease in their fatigue after the event and would feel less like they are out of breath, and would be able to return to their resting breathing rate quicker than before the training program. Also, training in this way will help to decrease the risk of the athlete getting medical conditions or diseases related to their respiratory system, such as bronchitis. I don't think I'm saying that right, but yeah, it will help decrease the risk of these by training. So now on to the neuromuscular adaptions. During anaerobic activities with high intensity and short durations, fast glycolytic fibers are recruited to bring about these large, powerful contractions. After an 8-week training program, these fibers will go through hypertrophy and become much stronger and more powerful as they have adapted to the demands of the exercise. Also the tendons will become much stronger as well. This picture here demonstrates the hypertrophy of the muscle fibers. So both the tendons getting stronger and the fibers getting stronger, both of these will benefit a performer to become better at their chosen anaerobic exercise. For example, a bench lifter will be able to lift heavier weights as their muscle fibers have become stronger. Also, a basketball player will be able to jump higher as their fibers have become more explosive and powerful after the training program. As well as this, the neural pathways that recruit motor units here become a lot faster as they are regularly having to go through saltatory conduction during the training sessions and polarizing and depolarizing. This will increase the athlete's reaction time as impulse is able to reach the muscle fiber a lot quicker. This is largely impactful for an anaerobic athlete such as a sprinter, as it means they are able to react to the sound of a gun at the start of a race a lot quicker and possibly gain an advantage over their opponents. So for an example of the power getting stronger, the normative power output for an untrained person during the 100-meter race is 600 watts. By the end of the training program, we would estimate that this value would increase to about 1,500 watts. This is because the adaptations have taken place, making their fibers more dense and powerful, therefore increasing their speed and power output of the sprinter. Thanks for watching part 1, and keep watching part 2.